So we are down to our third to the last panel session of the day, which is quite interesting because with me are four of the empowered and amazing women of RegTech. And this session will be moderated by the Chief Revenue Officer of Asia Verify, Ili Liwa. Over to you, Ili.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bia. Hi, everyone. Nice to have you all here. First of all, thank you, RegPack, for having me here. I'm so honored to be hosting this panel with three other amazing women in our industry. So, a little story time before we begin. Let me just do a quick introduction about myself before I pass on the mic to my guests, Momuna, Rachel, and Julia. So this is Ely here. I started my career in the risk and compliance space about 10 years ago by coincidence. And since then, I've worked with many compliance professionals and witnessed how technology does the magic to businesses. And currently, I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Asia Verify. We do automated UBO, KYB, KYC checks across APAC region in real time. So other than my role at Asia Verify, I'm also one of the committee members at the Women in FinTech Committee under the Singapore FinTech Association. So our mission is to empower and inspire more women in the tech space. So without further ado, I will pass the mic to our panelists and let them introduce themselves before we begin the very interesting panel discussion. So Mamuna, over to you. Muna, we can't hear you.
Sorry.
No problem.
Thank you very much. I am Mamuna Anwar, and thank you very much for having me on this panel. So, I am currently working as a Chief Compliance and Innovation Officer at Tara Zoo. So, my current role is to sustain our position as a global ID verification service provider for RegTech excellence and accelerate the adoption of RegTech globally, and to work closely with our members, regulators, and regulated entities to create and discover new opportunities. In my previous role, I was working as a software developer and software architect. So I've been working into core technology and software development. And then some 6 years ago, I developed interest in privacy and how we can use technologies and emerging technologies to enable privacy, all while complying to regulations. And that's when I started my doctoral degree in privacy and compliance. And that's when I started connecting the dots between regulations and technology, combining my experience, software development experience, and then the regulatory experience. So in addition to this, I'm also working as a industry research partner at UTS, University of Technology, Sydney. And there I'm working on many research projects, mainly to empower and enable RegTech tools and how we can use to fight fraud and enable businesses. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, Muna. Rachel, over to you. Hey, Rachel, we can't hear you. Nope. Maybe while you are testing, we get Julia to start first.
Yeah, sure. Hi, really thrilled to be here. I'm Julia. I head the compliance team at Hugo Safe. We are healthcare fintech and basically focusing on helping our users to have an easy to understand wealth care journey. Let's distinguish that from the wealth management app. I've had quite a few years in policy implementation with a focus on customer due diligence and operational risk management. So I've also been quite involved in financial inclusion work, and I am a volunteer with the Bankers Without Borders, and I'm really passionate about women empowerment, in particular in the area of financial inclusion. Back to you, Edie, and I hope Rachel can.
Yeah, Rachel, you want to try again? Okay, no worries. I think while Rachel, we'll let her keep trying, and yeah, let's move on to the panel discussion questions first, and then we can always come back to Rachel's introduction later. Uh, yeah, um, technical problem always exists. Yeah, so let's move on to the next part. So I have prepared some questions based on. Sorry, Rachel, are you? Oh, not yet. All right. We'll just continue then. So the first question I have here is, could you share with our audience your experience and journey as a senior business leader in the RegTech and compliance space? When and how did you started your career in this field? Julia, you want to speak first?
Okay, I could just first say one thing. No one ever wakes up one day and say, "Hey, I want to be a compliance officer."
Yes.
And just like you know, I think that I would consider myself stumbling onto compliance by luck. Right place, right time. What can I say? So it's. I think it's important for us to understand that a career path is not always a straight line. And I was trained as an accountant, and I haven't done much accounting my entire life. I was introduced to the banking world as a baby auditor during the years years ago. Well, having had the experience of managing risk in risk management, both in capital risk management, in credit, in operational risk, and I've even been involved in corporate recovery. So that really gave me a very, very holistic view about risk management in general. And during the good old days when deferred prosecution agreement on AML became a popular topic, I was lucky enough to be involved in a project in implementing or rather in remediation of customer due diligence, and that really got me excited about the kind of opportunities that there are in this space, and also at the same time because I like I mentioned I was a very active volunteer with Bankers Without Borders, and I really saw um, the need for the financial industry to be more open to financial inclusion, especially in the less fortunate countries or the third world and developing countries. We really see a lot of um, things that we can do. And at that time, it really got me thinking that I think one of the area that could really go into financial inclusion is fintech. And so, lo and behold, I ended up in a fintech as a compliance officer. Back to you, Ili.
Interesting story. I don't know how many people go in the compliance space like with clear intention. I think not many. Yeah. Next up, we would like to hear from Mamuna.
Yeah, unlike both of you, I my career in compliance was quite planned. I was working as a developer in my previous role, and then I started exploring privacy and security during my masters for cloud technology. So I have always been trying to connect technology with privacy and how we can enable end users privacy, give more control to end user. And then when I started research again, I took a gap of 3 years in my career, and then I started again. So then I started exploring how we can use technology to enable end user, to provide more security to end user, and to provide to give the control back to the end user. And that's when I started studying regulations and standards. And I was again lucky enough to join Data Zoo, that is itself a RegTech organization. And it gave me the chance to actually work in the industry, implement and design technological solutions to enable regulatory compliance. Because with all this, and for the last 6 years, from my personal experience, I think, and with all this global financial crisis, governments all over the world are trying to tighten business regulations and ramp up their enforcement activities, particularly through fines and other penalties. So this has impacted many organizations, especially fintech organizations, to fill their compliance gaps in their operations, build compliance solutions to save on the cost of non-compliance, and detect enterprise risk early to avoid future penalties. So, and because of all this, business leaders have become increasingly aware of compliance and its importance for their business. And they are continually looking for skill set and the technological tools to help their organization be compliant. However, I would say, like any other field, there is still room for improvement. But I believe a strategic partnership with RegTech and regulatory technologies can help us bridge this gap.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Yeah, since Momunan, you're on the screen now, I have the next question for you. So, what is your view on the importance of leveraging technology in risk and governance, and how can technology help in prevention of fraud and financial crimes, like in practice? Yeah.
Yeah, so financial crimes like identity theft or money laundering or terrorist financing have always been a pivotal issue all over the world for several decades. And authorities globally are trying to constantly look for new ways to tackle crimes, while criminals are becoming more and more sophisticated to stay ahead of the authorities. So what's happening, the technology is advancing, so is threat landscape. Criminals are becoming more intelligent, and they are using the same technology that we are using for security, they are using it for committing crimes. So as a result, the regulators are drafting new regulations every day. Now this is the challenge for organizations. We have to adopt new regulations, and we have to still comply with the existing regulations. So this is a very challenging task. By leveraging technology or by implementing solutions for regulatory technology, we can automate procedures that were previously done manually to streamline difficult compliance processes, and also reduce both business risk and staff workload. So, as an example, for example, meeting KYC requirements. In order to meet KYC requirements, banks use a range of measures, but far too often the financial service providers and banks are relying on manual processes to do KYC. These manual processes are costly to operate, time consuming, and cumbersome for the customer as well. KYC process is not very simple, and there are some hidden costs as well. If we don't talk about numbers, there are some hidden costs as well. For example, the process itself is very cumbersome, and then there are internal and external costs: the cost of employing people, the cost of employing technology, external costs, for example, the cost of sourcing out reliable and independent data sources. But it's not doom and gloom always. As businesses are increasingly looking to ease pressure on their compliance teams and protect businesses, interest and adoption of RegTech tools is on the rise, especially over the last decade and over the last 2 years, particularly with this COVID-19 pandemic. RegTech tools have largely help companies to comply with rules and improve their supervision activities. So I would say that today, when the industry is moving towards RegTech 3.0, we can say shift from knowing your customer to knowing your data. Yes, leveraging technology is definitely helping companies and organizations to streamline their compliance management.
Thank you, Maruna. That's insightful. I definitely see a lot of changes happening in my short 10 years in the industry. Here is the joy of technology, right? We enjoy the power of technology, but you know, technology can never replace human completely. Let's get Rachel to try again. Rachel, you want to?
Hi, I'm so sorry about that. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay, great.
Before
Yeah,
we answer this
apologies.
question, let us hear from you for your self introduction before we get on to the question.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Rachel Chia. I'm the CRO, the Chief Regulatory Officer, and also General Counsel of STEX Exchange. So STEX Exchange actually isn't a RegTech provider, but we're a very huge user of RegTech, simply because we're an MES regulated platform. We have two licenses, which is Capital Market Services, and also we run a regulated exchange. So because of our status as a regulated platform, we have I mean embedded in our DNA and embedded in the way that we're regulated is a huge need to comply with MES regulations and also regulations around the world. And therefore, we're huge consumers of RegTech and a huge proponent of using tech to kind of just streamline the way that we do our processes. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am and my background.
Thank you, Rachel. Yeah. So I'm curious to know I don't know if you have any example to share or in your experience, how do you feel about this question? Like how can technology help in prevention of fraud and financial crimes in your world?
Yeah, so I kind of resonate with a lot of things that Mona said earlier. I think at the end of the day, I guess technology hasn't really caught up to the stage where we can do without humans. And I think technology is a very good tool. And with the advance of a lot of things in machine learning and AI, and we can use that as a tool to help us spot a lot of patterns and suspicious activity, and also things more day-to-day kind of processes like KYC, AML checks, and stuff like that. But we still need experienced compliance professionals to be part of this process, because as we teach the machines more and give it more data and we get more nuances, hopefully the machine learning algorithms will get more and more sophisticated and be able to deal with like data that is reading from all the situations in a more accurate and more sophisticated manner. So I mean, we use technology to help us with our compliance with the regulators, but then within our own platform as well, we also use kind of like RegTech kind of tools to monitor the activity that are on our platforms, because within our platform we have rules and internal exchange listing requirements that we need people to comply with. So for example, we have a market surveillance tool which is incredibly helpful for our market surveillance team, because it's impossible for them to kind of look at every transaction on a manual basis. But with these market surveillance tools, they can look at it on a very macro basis. The market surveillance tool helps them to spot very irregular trading activity, which then can have further investigation into it. So, huge fan of using technology, but I think it has to be recognized that it is a tool rather than a replacement for experienced compliance professionals.
Yeah, sure. And ultimately, rules and algorithms are all built by human. Yeah. So now, I have a couple of burning questions. So the next question would be, there's this statement I actually found on the internet. So it says compliance can make or break your company's reputation. Do you agree with this statement, and why would you say so? Julia, over to you.
I absolutely agree. I feel really strongly about it. I think many of us are very familiar with the process of identifying stakeholders. So, who are our stakeholders? So, stakeholders in general, we have our staff, we have the regulators, we have our customers, we have our investors, we have some other external parties as well. So, if you do not have a good reputation, okay, first of all, say for example in the correspondent banking environment, your counterparts will not want to deal with you, because if you are known in the market to be very prone to fraud, you do not have good controls on AML program, uh, which bank would want to bank you, right? And if you have, again, the one that I feel most strongly about is that especially when we are I'm currently working in a scaling company and we are constantly in the lookout for good talent. And if you don't have a good reputation, I don't think any talent in the market will want to join us. So these are some of the examples of why I feel that a good reputation is extremely important in an organization. Right. Back to you, Evie.
Yeah, agree. What about you, Rachel, in terms of reputation and its relationship with the compliance practice of a company?
Yeah, so I mean, I agree with everything that Julia said. I mean, reputation is priceless. Once you lose it, it's so hard to get it back. And I mean, compliance is very much at the heart of SDAC's DNA because, firstly, because we're a regulated entity, but because it's so important for the trust and the well-being of our clients. At the end of the day, everything has to be, I mean, at the end of the day, it's good for business. It's just good for business to be compliant with the kind of regulations that you need. And I think we also go a step further to not just comply with the letter of the regulations, but the spirit behind the regulations. And I think it all boils down to the integrity of an organization as to what commitment they have to meeting all these compliance standards. And I think for SDEX, it's just very important for us to kind of be very careful as to how we want to set the standards in complying with these. We want to, I mean, we're very ambitious as a company. We want to set the gold standard as to how digital exchanges comply with things. I think digital exchanges, because it's been mired in the world of crypto exchanges as well, have a mixed reputation. People kind of have mixed feelings about dealing with digital assets on an exchange, especially because of all the negative news that has happened with the unregulated exchanges. And it's crucially important for us because we're trying to set the standard as to how digital exchanges should behave in the marketplace. And yeah, I guess this statement is just like it's a no-brainer. If you want to run a good business, you have, like I always say to my team, the compliance officer is one of the most important people in our organization because she's pretty much keeping us all out of jail and from being fined by the regulators. So I have huge respect for our compliance team.
So true, very true. Yeah. According to I've recently read from this one research, right? 45% of our global workforce, regardless like which country you are in, on average, 45% of the global workforce is made up of women, about 45%, but the number falls as low as 25% when it comes to the tech space, and even further down to 15 to 20% in the governance, risk, and compliance space. So, as a woman leader in this space, are you doing anything in your power to improve these statistics and embrace gender diversity, whether in your organization or at a personal level? Could you share with us? Maybe I'll start with Mamuna first.
Yes, so diversity is imperative for all workplaces. People with different backgrounds, different experiences, different gender, who come together as a team can develop more innovative ideas that will keep any company alive and thriving. So, in my personal capacity, I'm trying to contribute towards company culture. For example, whenever I am recruiting someone for my team, I try to write better job descriptions and if someone is leaving my team or leaving the company, I try to learn from the exit interviews. And then, in addition, as my role at UTS as a mentor, as a teacher, I try to, especially female students, I encourage them to rotate the roles. Say, for example, if we are working on a software development studio, usually what female students do, they would just do report writing and they will not contribute towards writing the code or anything like that. So I encourage them to rotate the roles. I encourage them to take the lead on things that we have said that okay, only male students can do that. Within my team, I'm uh, like the hiring. I'm very much influencing the hiring process as well because this is where you start. The hiring process isn't a one-way street anymore. So as much as a diversity candidate needs to sell themselves as a potential employee, the company needs to self itself as a diverse employer as well. So yes, definitely, particularly on a team level as well as on the company level, I am playing my part to enable gender equality and diversity.
Thank you. And every step counts. Yeah, definitely. Rachel, what about you?
Yeah, sure. I love this question because like we want equal opportunities for all. And I actually very happy to be in this company where I can report that as a fintech company, our gender balance is right now at 45% female to male. So it's quite balanced. And actually, when I looked at the stats for our senior management team, so heads of departments and C-suite roles, we're actually at 50%. So having been at other fintech companies and also at in like international banks and law firms, this has been one of the more balanced companies that I've been at, especially at the senior leadership roles, where 50% of our senior management team are female. And we've been very fortunate to have these amazing women want to take a step into this new economy and join our startup, and be part of this company. Because yeah, I mean, our approach at hiring at SDEX is to hire the best person for the job, and we've been very fortunate to have all these amazing women want to join us. And I mean, just on a personal level, I know it's a generalization, but I think women sometimes set themselves back because they don't want to step out their comfort zone and to do something that's not as well trodden, right? And yes, the new economy is a little bit scary for people. Like joining a fintech or a startup might be a little bit of the unknown. But as a female in this space, I want to show people that it can be done. It's not as scary. There are a lot of women that are doing this, and if you're interested, you should just try it. And I think being part of panels like this and going to networking events and just being part of like different kind of forums where you can showcase that there are lots of women doing these kind of roles in the new economy, in a RegTech space, in a fintech space. And there's actually lots and lots of exciting things that you can do in this new economy that you might not be able to do in like a traditional setup. So I would encourage women to kind of just ask more questions, speak to more women. Yeah, just try different things and step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, thank you. I cannot agree more, Rachel. So, and one of the unique thing about women is that we tend to feel more like confident when after we see other women doing it. Yeah, so it's really important that you mention we want to be the lead, right? And we represent the voice of the women in the industry. We show them this can be done, and as long as you want it, you always have a seat on the table. So thanks, Rachel, for sharing. I can't agree more. Julia.
I totally echo Rachel's sentiment on this, especially stepping out from the comfort zone. And I think this question actually can be broken into two parts. One is women coming into STEM, science and technology, and women in management. So this is not about breaking the glass ceiling. Among other issues that stem from this is actually the culturally prescribed gender roles, our upbringing, especially I think likely more in this part of the world than in the West, is where the gender differences in the self-confidence as well. And when considering an occupation, there's a belief that one can succeed in that occupation is a determining factor. Do you know that actually girls in similar mathematical ability have similar mathematical abilities to boys? They self-assess themselves slower. Okay, this study actually came from my daughter. She was the one who gave me some of the statistics. And she says that a study in Singapore at NTU found that only 58% of women who graduate with STEM degrees or diplomas go on to have related careers. So so as a woman leader with non-STEM background, that's me, mentorship is extremely important. And there is an apprehension for women with no STEM background to enter this space. I think it's more mindset. I share from my personal experience actually, and to my mentees as well, that to change this, it is actually about changing the mindset. I call myself a technosaurus. My bosses call me a technosaurus. So I if you ask me about tech, I'm actually the last person to talk about tech, but I'm the head of compliance for fintech, right? So, hey, there are new things to learn every day. And like Rachel mentioned, just step out from your comfort zone. Look at how we can learn new things every day. And as a mentor, my aim is to be a role model for women who want to enter this space. As an example, they can absolutely succeed and thrive here in STEM and in management. Sounds rather simplistic, but there's a lot to do with empowering women and building their confidence. You know, a forum like this is very helpful because it helps us to also exchange ideas on how we can encourage our girls, right, to adopt a growth mindset, to be curious, to identify their transferable skill sets, and to never say no. For those who are keen to enter this space and don't know how to, I urge our listeners out there to reach out to us, those who are in the industry. There are many of us who have been there and been in that position, have been doubtful that we are able to do it, but we are still learning together. Back
Thank
to you,
you.
Lee.
Yeah, thank you, Julia. This is so inspiring. Yeah, I also would like to share a little bit from my perspective. So I think I found my passion and my voice in this area by contributing my time and energy in the Women in FinTech committee. Yeah, it's a wonderful community that we've built up to support and encourage more women in the industry. And then, I mean, already in the tech industry or have the interest to join the industry but don't know how. We organize so many activities, and then we show our faces, we show our voices in platforms like this to encourage and inspire more women to, yeah, pursue their dream. And yeah, it's a very fulfilling role that I'm doing in the Women in FinTech subcommittee. So that is what I personally do in my power to contribute in this area. And we have an interesting comment in the comment section. So here, Charlotte says, there is a slight problem is that traditional compliance role in banks pay a lot more than like RegTech, FinTech. I know we do have our panelists here come from a traditional banking background. So any of you want to take up this it's actually not a question, maybe not a question, but it's a comment. Does any one of you want to address this?
I can take that. I can relate to it. Yes, it can be a very, very painful thing, moving to from a bank. Banks normally pay more. That's also, well, fintechs or startups generally. What you are compensated with would be, instead of the cash, you get the employee share option schemes that hopefully you'll be able to cash out in a few years' time. So there are a lot of things that will probably have to be taken into consideration when taking that leap as well, obviously, because financial stability in the home does play a very important role. So much that I would say, come join us. There are also other personal circumstances you need to think about. When I took up this role, my kids now, I shall now disclose my age. I have very grown kids who told me, Mom, it's about time you go and do something that you enjoy doing. So don't worry about us. So I have come to a place, a very good place where it doesn't hurt me so much as compared to maybe someone who's younger who would not be able to have that opportunity to go to one company that can only offer you a certain amount salary while the rest of it is in the form of employee shares. And
Thank you.
thank you, Tahira, for your comment.
Thank you, Julia. Yeah, yes, as much as we love what we're doing, I think this is a very thanks, Charlotte. I think this is a very real comments. Yeah, we can't just cover it up and not talk about the not so bright side of the things, right? So yes, we do need to take different things into consideration and strike a balance, yeah, depending on our own personal circumstances. So I guess we are running out of time. So we can't have a very like long and comprehensive Q&A session, but we do have about 5 minutes to take one or two questions from the audience. So if you all have any questions, please feel free to post the question in the comment box, or there is a Q&A section. Okay, there's one question here. The RegTech industry is maturing and companies are increasingly investing more in RegTech solutions. So what are the new trends or emerging technology you have been observing recently? Rachel, you want to take this?
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, there are lots of trends, and it's like really hard to keep on top of all of them. But one that is quite close to what we do as an exchange is one of the things that we're very focused on as a platform is to put a lot of ESG compliant products on our platform. We have a chief sustainability officer, which is one of the women that I said that I mentioned was in our senior leadership position. She's been in this business for 30 years and she's an amazing woman. And we're talking about how basically regulation is just growing at this exponential rate. And then within the space of ESG, it's just growing into this huge alphabet soup that no one can really keep their tabs on. And there's lots of and because of this growth in ESG demand for ESG products and also ESG regulation, for example, we've had the new EU kind of regulation come out on ESG, sustainable financing, and also there's been a new act in the US, the Climate Risk Disclosure Act. There's also been tools that have come out on the market that help us manage the way that we are kept on top of these new regulations, the kind of trends within ESG, the way that ESG metrics are being the way that ESG metrics are being observed and kind of tabulated to our own internal processes as well. And I mean, it's just exciting to see that as there's demand from the market for a certain kind of product, and because of the regulation on it, then the tech kind of like the tech community creates a product for it, and that's interesting as well.
Thank you, Rachel. Julia, you want to share something?
One of the area that I have noticed has been growing is actually around AI-powered tools and blockchain-enabled verification tools. So, coming from a skeptic viewpoint as well, a little bit, Mamuna will be able to relate to this on the data quality. So, and also, we are very much still using artificial narrow intelligence rather than which is far from the artificial general intelligence capability, which will be very expensive for commercial use. So, at the end of the day, the tools are only as good as the data quality that we get. But this is not the end of the story. What I actually wanted to highlight is that I have this friend of mine. She started her career as a hairstylist when she was younger. Then she decided that she wanted to do risk management. So she went into risk management, and now she's pursuing a PhD in artificial intelligence. So what I want to share is that nothing is going to stop us if we want to do something in this area. And artificial intelligence is really a huge area that is growing. So go for it.
Thank you, Julia. Mamuna?
Yeah, from the emerging technology point of view, I would say that yes, there are many technologies that enable RegTech and that enhance our regulatory and compliance processes. But many companies are just after the buzzword. We had blockchain and we tried to implement blockchain in everything, even if it was not feasible. Then now we are moving towards metaverse and we are trying to do all the augmented reality, artificial intelligence, machine learning to build solutions that to build a rocket solution that will enable metaverse and regulatory compliance. So here I would say that it is very important to have a digital strategy and strike a balance between the technology and your business strategy, your business requirements. What are your goals? What are your regulatory and compliance goals? So blindly investing into technology won't be a wise decision by companies. It is very important to do some feasibility and strategic analysis before opting in for any technology. Yes, technologies empower RegTech and compliance, but it is very important that you intelligently choose the right technology for your specific business context.
Thank you so much, Mamuna. Yeah, I'm the advocate for practicality. Yes, without if you cannot put things in practice, yeah, they are just buzzword, and you can't really use those technology for anything. Yeah, so thank you everyone. This is a very insightful session. I just wish we have more time, but we don't. So I have to wrap up this session. Thank you everyone for your time, and also huge thanks to our audience for asking those meaningful questions. Yeah, so that's the end of the session. Thank you everyone. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
for
Thank
having
you.
you so
us.
much for this discussion panels and amazing woman you are indeed. And let's move on to our next session. And thank you very much, panels. Thank you, everyone. And over to you, Sarah, for our next session. Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.